find you, Dr. Evil.
I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
Espionage has been a part of the world's culture for many, many years. It has ended and started many conflicts. The Espionage Act was enacted on June 15, 1917, soon after the United States entered World War I. A year later, the U.S. Congress amended the law with the Sedition Act of 1918 on May 16th. In his war message to Congress, President Wilson had warned that the war would require a redefinition of national loyalty. Here were millions of men and women of German birth and native sympathy who live amongst us, he said. If there should be disloyalty, it will be dealt with the firm hand of repression. Congress immediately passed legislation to silence not only anti-war agitators, but also people lumped together in the popular press as Reds, left-wing activists and foreign immigrants. The April 1917 Declaration of War, wrote historian Alice Wexler, touched off an unprecedented campaign to stifle criticism of the government. Under the Espionage Act, federal legislation made it illegal to speak out against the government during World War I. The Espionage Act prohibited individuals from expressing or publishing opinions that would interfere with the U.S. military's effort to defeat Germany and its allies. The Sedition Act of 1918 made it illegal to write or speak anything critical of American involvement in the war. Specifically, the Espionage Act made it a crime to willfully interfere with the U.S. war efforts by conveying false information about the war, obstructing U.S. recruitment or enlistment efforts, or inciting insubordination, disloyalty, or mutiny. The Sedition Act made the language of the Espionage Act more specific by making it illegal to use disloyal, profane, or abusive language to criticize the U.S. Constitution, the government, the military, the flag, or the uniform. The government had the authority to punish a wide range of speech and activities such as obstructing the sale of U.S. bonds, displaying the German flag, or giving a speech that supported the enemy's cause. Persons convicted of violating these laws could be fined of up to $10,000 and also be sentenced to prison for as long as 20 years. Under the Espionage and Sedition Acts, the U.S. Postmaster General had the authority to ban the mailing of all letters, circulars, newspapers, pamphlets, packages, and other materials that opposed the war. Postmaster General Albert Sidney Burleson was zealous in his enforcement of the law. He immediately sent letters to local postmasters instructing them to send him any potential illegal material. As a result, about 75 newspapers lost their mailing privileges, or were pressured to print nothing more about the war. These publications included German American or German language newspapers, pacifist publications, and publications owned by the American Socialist Party and the industrial workers of the world. The Espionage Act dealt with many uncontroversial issues, such as punishing acts of spying and sabotage and protecting shipping. The act, then amended by the Sedition Act, was extremely controversial, for many immigrants were opposed to the war, the military draft, and violations of their free speech rights. No one was convicted of spying or sabotage under the Espionage Act during World War I. However, more than 2,000 people were arrested for sedition. 1,000 of them, including many immigrants, were convicted. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the Espionage and Sedition Acts, ruling that the government had the authority to punish speech that would create a clear and present danger. Political dissenters bore the brunt of the repression. Eugene V. Debs, who urged socialists to resist militarism, went to prison for nearly 3 years. On June 16th of 1918, he delivered a famous anti-war speech in Canton, Ohio. He protested against World War I, which was raging in Europe. He was arrested because of the speech and convicted in a federal court in Cleveland, Ohio, under the wartime espionage law. He was sentenced to serve 10 years in prison and disenfranchised for life, losing his citizenship. Debs ran his 1920 presidential campaign from behind bars. President Warren Harding pardoned Debs in 1921. Another socialist, Kate Richards O'Hare, served a year in prison for stating that the women of the United States were nothing more nor less than brood sows to raise children, to get into the army, and be made into fertilizer. In July 1917, labor radicals offered another ready target for attack. In Cochise County, Arizona, armed men under the direction of a local sheriff rounded up 1,186 strikers at the Phelps Dodge copper mine. They placed these workers, many of Mexican descent, on railroad cattle cars without food or water and left them in New Mexico desert 180 miles away. The Los Angeles Times editorialized, "The citizens of Cochise County have written a lesson that the whole of America would do well to copy." During World War I, the radical labor organization, the International Workers of the World, never recovered from government attacks. In September 1917, the Justice Department staged massive raids on IWW officers, arresting 169 of its veteran leaders. The administration's purpose was, as one attorney put it, very largely to put the IWW out of business. Many observers thought the judicial system would protect dissenters, but the courts handed down stiff prison sentences to the radical labor organization's leaders. On September 5, 1917, federal agents raided Industrial Workers of the World offices nationwide. On September 28, 166 people who were or had been active in the IWW were accused of trying to cause insubordination, disloyalty, and refusal of duty in the military and naval forces in violation of the Espionage Act. 101 defendants were found guilty and received prison sentences ranging from 10 days to 20 years. Radicals were not the only one to suffer harassment. Robert Goldstein, a motion picture producer, had made a movie about the American Revolution called The Spirit of 76 before the United States entered the war. When he released the picture after the declaration of war, he was accused of undermining American morale. A judge told him that his depiction of heartless British redcoats caused Americans to question their British allies. He was sentenced to a 10-year prison term and fined $5,000. The Espionage Act was intended to be in effect only during wartime, but the law continued to be invoked following the end of World War I during the Red Scare of 1919 to 1920, and again after World War II during the Cold War. The Sedition Act was repealed in 1921, but major portions of the Espionage Act remain in effect as part of the U.S. law.